When the U.S. went on the offensive in the Pacific War, putting Marines ashore in the Solomon Islands in August 1942, Admiral Yamamoto grasped its strategic significance immediately and moved to oppose it. Soon, 1,000,000 tons of the best warships from both navies were bearing down on Guadalcanal. The inevitable clash produced 2 major carrier battles and many months of fierce naval combat. At stake in the near term was whether the several thousand Marines on Guadalcanal and Tulagi would stay or go. In this episode of Battle Stars, we get up to speed on the Battle of the Eastern Solomons, in which the carrier Enterprise, as well as the battleship North Carolina, land in the crosshairs of the most determined Japanese air attack of the carrier war to date. This battle paired the recently upgraded Saratoga, Vice Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher's flagship, with the veteran Enterprise. Together they had 174 aircraft, including 72 Wildcats. The popular North Carolina was also on hand, fresh from the Atlantic. The first of the fast battleships, she had made an inspirational entrance at Pearl Harbor, and now held a cruiser's position screening Enterprise, something Admiral Nimitz was trying for the first time. On the Japanese side, the catastrophe at Midway left carrier aviation significantly weaker. To oppose the American landings, Admiral Chuichi Nagumo could muster the veteran fleet carriers Zuikaku and Shokaku and small carrier Ryujo. Between them, they had 177 aircraft. Their 54 dive bombers were the strike aircraft of choice. Despite heavy fighting ashore on Guadalcanal, the Japanese Army didn't share Yamamoto's sense of urgency, and a reinforcement convoy with only 1,500 troops embarked wasn't ready until the 3rd week of August, when neither intelligence nor reconnaissance could place the whereabouts of enemy carriers. Admiral Robert Gormley, the U.S. theater commander, ordered Fletcher to send his 3rd carrier, the Wasp, south to refuel. With her went Fletcher's air advantage. After the usual preliminaries, with both sides groping to find each other's big carriers and missing opportunities to hit first, the expected clash occurred on August 24th. Admiral Nagumo started the day as much in the dark as Fletcher. When the American carriers could not be located, he sent Ryujo to support the convoy. When aerial reconnaissance located her, Fletcher held back, still hoping to find the big carriers, but he finally sent 30 dive bombers and 8 torpedo planes from Saratoga without fighter escort to attack Ryujo. The planes left her sinking, forcing the Japanese to scuttle her after dark. Meanwhile, when Nagumo's scout planes began to disappear, a sure sign of the presence of carrier aircraft, he correctly deduced Fletcher's location and launched the first of 2 strikes a few minutes before 1500 hours. 2 scout bombers from Enterprise adroitly slipped past enemy fighters and nearly interrupted the show, scoring a near miss on flagship Shokaku that killed 6 men and escaping, but their radio report was not received. Nagumo's first strike of 27 dive bombers and 10 fighters found the Big E. In less than 30 minutes after radar detected incoming aircraft, 53 Wildcats were airborne. Such a substantial number might ordinarily have overwhelmed the attackers, but radar determined distance, not altitude, and the Wildcats were still too low for the Japanese strike, which was approaching at 16,000 feet, and split into 2 groups. Radio discipline and fighter direction broke down, and only 10 slow-climbing Wildcats reached the dive bombers before they began their attacks, and the vast majority got through. After this disappointing turn, the second line of defense, shipboard gunnery, had its crack at them. There's a time to hit and a time to be hit, as the carrier men said, and now, for the first time ever, it was the Big E's turn to be hit. The time was 17:12. Because of cloud cover, shipboard gunners didn't spot the dive bombers until they pushed over, at which point the whole task force of 9 ships opened fire. Filing in astern of the Enterprise, North Carolina's impressive anti-aircraft battery of 50 caliber, 20 millimeter, 1.1 inch, and 5-inch guns sounded like a steady drum roll as she laid a blanket of steel over the carrier. Witnesses were convinced she had caught fire. The intensity of the barrage astonished both sides. The planes attacked at intervals of 7 seconds for almost 4 minutes. Wildcat pilots followed them straight down and into the anti-aircraft fire and a 5-inch round destroyed one of them. The carrier twisted and turned at full speed, leaving the slower North Carolina behind. Gunnery was having success, and enemy planes disintegrated above the carrier, with their remnants following their bombs down. Planes foolish enough to take swing at the battleship paid a high price, as not a single plane that attacked North Carolina returned to its carrier. A tally of all the American claims added up to far more planes destroyed than had attacked. But 18 of 27 dive bombers and 6 of 10 fighters had gone down. The battle's outcome now passed to damage control, the carrier's third line of defense. Enterprise was struck for the first time 2 minutes into the attack when a bomb crashed through the after elevator and penetrated 42 feet through the elevator well, gun gallery, and 3 decks before it detonated. The blast whipsawed the carrier, lifting her in a vertical motion, then shoving her laterally. Incredibly, the second hit came soon afterward and struck within 15 feet of the first. For the second time in some 30 seconds, the violent whipping of the ship knocked men off their feet, popped rivets, sprung hatches, and started leaks. 4 minutes into the attack, a third bomb exploded on the flight deck, leaving a 10-foot hole and disabling the number 2 elevator. The attack was over in 5 minutes. Enterprise was listing and burning inside. A fourth of her guns were out of action. Looking for positive signs, anxious observers noted she was still making 27 knots. Men poured over and through the ship, fighting fires and risking their lives to make difficult, dangerous emergency repairs. Within an hour, the flight deck was usable and the Big E began to recover aircraft. Yet one of those mysterious internal problems that finished Lexington at Coral Sea now afflicted Enterprise. In this case, she lost steering control, with the rudder jammed over to starboard. Water had shorted out an electric motor when a ventilation trunk was mistakenly opened remotely. 7 men in the compartment were overcome before they could switch to the alternate motor. With Nagumo's second strike of 36 aircraft inbound, the Big E was steaming in a circle, incapable of taking evasive action. This was a do-or-die moment in the life of the ship, and Chief Machinist William Smith donned a special breathing apparatus, and at tremendous personal risk, and after twice failing because of the inhuman heat, managed on his third try to start the alternate motor. After 38 minutes of steaming in a circle, the helm finally answered when the second strike was only 10 minutes away. Inexplicably, a miscommunication mercifully sent the attack in the wrong direction. The crew spent a sleepless night fighting internal fires, but the worst was over. Wasp returned to relieve Enterprise. The Big E buried 74 of her crew and departed for repairs. The enemy convoy didn't land, but his carriers would undoubtedly be back, and so would the Big E. Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator of Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe.